Hello, my YouTube family and youngsters, and welcome back to Crime Whispers. I know many of you use these videos to help you fall asleep, so before you drift off, why not drop a comment letting me know where in the world you're listening from, and if you're enjoying the case, don't forget to like and subscribe now. Let's get comfy, relax, and begin story 1. On the morning of January 24th, 2012, in WC Province City, China, the second day of the Chinese New Year, the festive sound of firecrackers still echoed through the streets. An elderly resident, taking his usual morning walk about 6 miles from the city center in a quiet village, stopped by his vegetable garden to check on his crops. The lush green rows gave him a sense of satisfaction until his eyes caught sight of something dark and out of place in the corner of the garden. As he approached, horror froze him in his tracks. A woman lay motionless on the ground, wearing a black, long-sleeved sweater on her upper body, but completely unclothed from the waist down. Alarmed, the elderly man rushed to get help from nearby residents. Within half an hour, the Criminal Investigation Department of the Qingyi District Police Bureau arrived to begin their work. The victim was a young woman, likely in her early 30s, with no signs of life. The forensic examiner's preliminary assessment indicated she had died within the past 12 hours. Multiple wounds to her head, caused by a blunt object, had left her face unrecognizable because of her state of undress. Investigators considered the possibility of sexual assault followed by murder to eliminate witnesses. The victim's shoes were missing, and there were no signs of struggle near the body, suggesting the crime likely happened elsewhere. Nearby bushes held a broken jade bracelet, probably hers. Interestingly, she was still wearing other jewelry, meaning robbery was likely not the motive. As police sirens wailed, an increasing crowd gathered, whispering in shock about a murder during the New Year's holidays. Such terrible luck. Despite questioning locals, no one could identify the woman. The key question was, who was she, and why was she there? A special task force was quickly set up, while waiting for autopsy results to help identify the victim. Police combed through missing persons reports filed in the city, but with such a wide area to search, progress was slow. Then a crucial lead emerged, reviewing surveillance footage from the village road taken over the past 24 hours. Cameras captured a dark-colored SUV stopping about 165 feet from the body at 3:45 a.m. on January 24th. The vehicle's hazard lights were on, and its automatic trunk opened. A shadowy figure got out, disappeared from view for about 10 minutes, then returned and drove off in the same direction it had come. The investigators suspected this SUV was used to transport and dump the victim's body. Unfortunately, heavy rain early that morning, slick roads, and reflections from streetlights made the footage unclear. The license plate and vehicle color couldn't be identified, and the person's actions after leaving the car were out of camera range. In a city with thousands of matching SUVs, this lead wasn't enough to crack the case. Just when the investigation seemed stuck, new information arrived from the Qingyi District Police Station. Early that same morning, around 5 a.m., an officer finishing his night shift was approached by 2 men reporting a missing woman. One explained that his wife had gone out to buy medicine around 10 p.m. the previous night and never returned. They had been searching for her since 2 a.m., but found no trace. The missing woman was the wife of one reporter, and the other was her brother. The brother was especially worried, certain his sister wouldn't leave without saying goodbye, especially during the New Year holiday, when the family had just reunited. She also had a 1-year-old son, giving her no reason to disappear like this, since less than 12 hours had passed. Police took down the report and advised them to wait, expecting she might come home soon. But this missing persons report became a key puzzle piece. The time of death of the body found in the vegetable garden matched the time the woman went missing, and the victim's age closely matched the missing woman's profile. Police soon verified this was likely the same person. They identified her as Chen Xiaowei, 36 years old. Police contacted her family to identify the body the next morning. At the morgue, her brother, sister, and husband gathered, though the victim's face was badly disfigured. Her sister, China Shaw immediately recognized her. The broken jade bracelet and the jewelry on the body were confirmed by the family as hers. DNA testing later matched the body to the family members, officially confirming the victim's identity. The autopsy showed Chen Xiaowei died from severe head trauma caused by an external blunt force, a notable detail. Although she had sexual relations within 12 hours before her death, there were no signs of assault or beating, suggesting it may have been consensual. The deliberate exposure of her lower body at the crime scene seemed like a cruel message from the killer at the morgue. Chen Xiaowei's family wept uncontrollably, overcome with grief at the tragic loss of their loved one. The police took statements from the family. Shaw's sister, Cezia, reported that on New Year's Eve, the night of the murder, she had stayed at her sister's home until 10:30 p.m. She clearly remembered that Shaw had prepared an elaborate feast that evening, was in good spirits, and showed no unusual behavior according to Shaw's husband, Hang Ji. After everyone in the family had left around midnight, their 1-year-old child suddenly developed a high fever. Shaw rushed out to buy medicine. When she hadn't returned after more than an hour, he became worried and repeatedly called her, but she didn't answer. He wanted to go look for her, but stayed home because their child was sick and needed care. Hang Ji assumed that because it was New Year's and many nearby pharmacies might be closed, Shaw had to travel further to find medicine. However, when she still hadn't returned after another half hour, around 2 a.m., he took their feverish child to Shaw's cousin's house and then went out alone, searching everywhere after. Searching until 5 a.m. with no sign of Shaw. He called his brother-in-law and went to the police station to file a missing persons report. A woman going out alone late at night was certainly dangerous. But what puzzled police was that this did not appear to be a robbery, nor did it look like a sexual assault. So, what was the killer's motive? Based on Hang Ji's information, police checked pharmacies within a 3-mile radius of Shaw's home. Although it was the New Year holiday, several 24-hour pharmacies were open, but none of the staff remembered seeing Shaw. This was strange. What had happened to her before she even reached a pharmacy? Next, police tried to determine the exact time Shaw left home, hoping to find clues from street cameras, since the apartment complex where Shaw lived had only one pedestrian entrance and exit. They reviewed surveillance footage from 10 p.m. on January 23rd to 2nd a.m. the following morning. As Cezia had said, Shaw appeared on camera at 10:28 p.m., leaving her sister's home, but to police surprise, there was no footage of her leaving the apartment complex later to buy medicine. Around midnight, as claimed, had something happened to her before she even left the complex? Or was Hang Ji lying? Just as police began to suspect Hang Ji, investigators at Shaw's apartment complex brought back encouraging news. A neighbor named Su, who was close friends with Hang Ji, told police that around 1 a.m. on January 24th, just after returning home from playing cards, he received a call from Hang Ji asking to borrow his car as acquaintances. He agreed without question. Hang Ji returned the car. Quickly afterward, the neighbor noticed nothing else unusual, but police instincts immediately kicked in. Neighbor Su's car was a black SUV, very similar to the vehicle seen near the crime scene. Reviewing surveillance footage again, they found an important detail. At 1:20 a.m., this car returned to the apartment complex, then left again at 2:55 a.m. The driver was very likely Hang Ji. These clues made Hang Ji the prime suspect. Police went to his apartment complex and asked neighbor Su to bring the car in for inspection. When the trunk was opened, it was unusually clean, as if it had been thoroughly wiped down using forensic techniques. Police carefully examined the car. Their efforts paid off. 2 to 3 small bloodstains were found inside, though tiny. Forensic experts were able to collect samples for testing. 1 day later, DNA results confirmed the blood belonged to the victim, Shahat. This point, Hang Ji officially became the main suspect. Police brought him in for questioning. Hang Ji stuck to his story, but when asked why he had borrowed his neighbor's car to search for his wife instead of using his own, and where exactly he had gone, His answers were unclear throughout the questioning. He couldn't control shaking legs, and his anxious eyes gave him away to experienced officers. These were clear signs of deception. While Hang-ji tried to buy time, police searched his and Shaw's home, suspecting it might be the primary crime scene, though nothing seemed unusual at first glance. Under luminol testing, blood spatters and drip patterns appeared on the living room floor. Bathroom and door frame tests confirmed the blood belonged to Shaw. Confronted with irrefutable evidence, Hang-ji could no longer deny the truth and confessed. This shocked Shaw's family, especially her brother, who insisted this was impossible. He said Shaw and Hang-ji had been married for 7 years, and from dating to marriage, he had never seen them argue. Moreover, Hang-ji had always treated Shaw and her family well. How could he be a killer? Neighbor Sue, too, was stunned. This couple was known as a model family, always smiling and happy when seen around the complex. So how did Hang-ji, a man who left such a good impression on family and neighbors, commit such a cruel act against his wife on New Year's Eve? In the interrogation room, Hang-ji finally confessed to the entire crime. He said that after Shaw's sister left that evening, Shaw began cleaning the house and put their child to bed, while Hang-ji sat silently on the sofa, staring at his phone. Close to midnight, thinking his wife had gone to sleep, he remained engrossed in his phone. Suddenly, Shaw came out of the bedroom and saw him still focused on the screen. She grabbed the phone to see what had him so distracted, and what she saw made her blood boil. On the screen was a nude photo of another woman, followed by more provocative images and flirtatious messages exchanged between this woman and Hang-ji. There was no doubt her husband was having an affair, and this wasn't the first time Shaw had discovered it. In a fit of rage, she slapped Hang-ji hard across the face, making his ears ring. She threw the phone at him, her voice dripping with contempt. "I can't endure this anymore. I'll let everyone know how fake you really are." Hearing these words, Hang-ji panicked. He was a proud man who hated the thought of bowing his head before relatives and colleagues. Shaw turned to go back to the bedroom. Hang-ji grabbed her to stop her from leaving. In a sudden rage, Shaw kicked off her slippers and began striking him repeatedly. As if unleashing years of pent-up resentment, her blows grew harder and harder. During the struggle, Hang-ji was pushed down onto the TV cabinet nearby. A hammer caught his eye instinctively. He grabbed it and struck Shaw on the head. She collapsed immediately, staring at the dark pool of blood spreading on the floor. Hang-ji stood frozen, unsure what to do next. Suddenly, the sound of their child crying in the bedroom snapped him back to reality. He rushed in to comfort the child until he fell asleep again. Returning to the living room, Hang-ji found Shaw still motionless, bending down. He moved his hand near her nose and realized she was no longer breathing. Panic flooded his mind. He knew things couldn't be undone. Thoughts raced. His wife was dead. He might be arrested, and who would care for their son? Taking deep breaths to calm himself, Hang-ji made a reckless decision. He would dispose of Shaw's body as far away as possible. Not only that, he planned to erase all traces linking the crime to himself by staging a false crime scene, hoping to make it look like Shaw had been brutally murdered by someone else. He took the hammer again and continued striking Shaw's face until it was unrecognizable. Next, he cleaned the messy crime scene, wiping away all bloodstains, and changed Shaw into clothes she typically wore when going out. Overcome by anxiety and fear, sweat dripped down his face. Glancing at the clock, it was nearly 2:15 a.m. He worried about how to transport the body without being noticed. Using his own car would be too risky. Then he remembered his close neighbor, Sue, who usually played cards late into the night during the New Year holiday, often returning home around 1 or 2 a.m. Hang-ji called Sue, fabricating a story that his car was broken and he needed to borrow. Once Sue agreed without hesitation with the neighbor's black SUV, Hang-ji began carrying out his plan carefully, trying not to make noise that might wake anyone. It took great effort to get Shaw's body down to the garage and into the trunk. Then he went back upstairs, carried their sleeping child down, and placed him in the back seat. Next, He called Shaw's cousin, inventing a story that Shaw had gone to buy medicine and hadn't returned, asking if he could leave the child there so he could search for her after dropping off the child. Heng-ji drove alone toward the city outskirts. His only thought was to find a remote, deserted place to leave the body suddenly. His phone rang. It was Shaw's brother. Worried after hearing from their cousin, he wanted to join the search and urged Heng-ji to return quickly so they could search together. If they couldn't find her, they would report it to the police. Hearing report to the police, Heng-ji abruptly stopped the car. The roadside was dark and deserted. Without time to be selective, he dragged the body onto a small path and removed Shaw's pants. In his mind, he calculated that if police found the body this way, they would assume Shaw had been raped and murdered. But his carefully staged crime scene was flawed. Modern forensic methods soon exposed the truth. Some things, like broken trust and love, can never be hidden. How tragic for Shaw, who despite enduring so much, could never have imagined her life would end in such horror. Heng-ji had always played the part of a model husband and father to friends and relatives. But someone had noticed his true nature long before that person was Shaw's sister, Sizia. After the case broke, Sizia agreed to be interviewed by the press. She revealed she was the only family member who knew about Heng-ji's affairs, not because Shaw confided in her, but because Sizia had accidentally discovered the truth during a family gathering in 2008, borrowing her brother-in-law's phone to make a call. She stumbled upon romantic messages between him and other women. Sizia faced a dilemma. She didn't want her sister's marriage to collapse, but she knew Shaw well enough to understand how deeply humiliating the truth would be. Shaw was a strong woman, hardworking, promoted to a management position at her company, and dedicated to presenting a happy family life. She rarely shared her troubles, always caring about how others perceived her. Having a perfect family and a successful career was her greatest pride. Wanting to protect her sister's dignity, Sizia chose to keep Heng-ji's secrets hidden for now. Sizia had to bury this secret deep in her heart. In the following years, she often tried to gently ask about her sister's marriage, but Shaw always insisted everything was fine, showing no signs of trouble. Looking back, Sizia realized there were moments when her sister seemed on the verge of confiding something, only to hold back. After the tragedy, Sizia was filled with regret. She felt she should have told her sister as soon as she discovered Heng-ji's first affair. Maybe then Shaw could have stayed away from that terrible man, and perhaps she wouldn't have lost her life. Shaw's brother also expressed deep remorse for not recognizing how broken his sister's marriage had become. If only he had cared more, worried more, perhaps things might have ended differently. But all these regrets came too late. The tragedy had happened and couldn't be undone. Throughout the investigation, Heng-ji consistently claimed he killed his wife during a struggle or crime of passion, committed in anger. In many countries, crimes of passion differ from premeditated murder and can lead to reduced sentences. However, in China, this legal distinction is not yet recognized. In 2013, the Nanning Intermediate People's Court in Guangxi Province delivered its verdict. Heng-ji was found guilty of intentional homicide and sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve. Faced with this sentence, Heng-ji did not appeal. Perhaps deep down, he knew that no amount of remorse could ever compensate for his wife's death. His remaining life would be spent paying for his crime. Chen Shaw's tragedy leaves behind painful lessons about marriage and love. In today's world, women need the courage to face the truth, no matter how painful, rather than enduring silently to save face. They must stand strong and protect themselves, because an unhappy marriage is far more painful than being alone, and silence can sometimes lead to unforeseen consequences. Now, how will their young child face life? How can he accept the truth that his father took his mother's life on what should have been a joyful New Year's Eve? These questions remain unanswered, and they will haunt Heng-ji for the rest of his days behind bars. Story 2. Around 3 p.m. on September 12, 2009, police received a call from the manager of convenience store number 71 on Yuko Street, Sham Shui Po, Hong Kong. The manager reported that a female employee, Yang Zhu, scheduled to start her shift at 2:40 p.m., had failed to show up without any explanation and could not be reached by phone, although it had not been long since her absence. Yang had been working at the store for some time and had never missed work without notifying anyone. What worried the manager most was that just as Yang was supposed to start her shift, a regular customer arrived in a panic, asking if she was working that day when told she hadn't shown up. The customer became very serious, insisting that something might have happened and that the police should be notified immediately. When the manager pressed for more details, the customer hesitated but then explained that the day before, on the afternoon of September 11th, he had arranged to meet Yang during their time together. They had gone to Yang's residence, had sexual relations, and later went out for dinner. During dinner, Yang received a call from her boyfriend, who had discovered her affair with the customer. Furious, he demanded she return home immediately. The manager said the customer told him Yang's boyfriend had a volatile temper and often became angry. Concerned for her safety, the customer had advised Yang not to go home, but she insisted on returning, despite the warning. By the next day, no one could reach Yang by phone. The customer worriedly went to her residence, but got no response after knocking for a long time. He then went to the convenience store to find she had not come to work. The manager, aware of the boyfriend's temper and his caring nature, often waiting outside the store after her shifts and bringing her meals, felt the situation was serious. Therefore, he decided to contact the police for help. When police arrived at Yang's apartment, a fifth-floor unit in the Wying building at 27A, 277 Fua Street, they identified themselves and knocked on the door. Despite knocking for a long time, there was no response. Without evidence of a crime or indication that Yang was in danger inside, the officers were not authorized to forcibly enter. During their investigation, police learned that the apartment's tenant was a 40-year-old man named Lang Yao Cheng. Attempts to contact him went unanswered after several tries. The officers discovered Lang had a 15-year-old daughter and decided to reach out to her eventually. They managed to speak with Lang's daughter when asked about her father's whereabouts. She told police that earlier that day, Lang had visited her, knelt down, and tearfully apologized, saying, "I've done something wrong and let you down," he told her. He planned to return to his hometown to end his life, and urged her to live well with her mother before leaving. He gave her 2,000 Hong Kong dollars, over 1,000 Chinese yuan, and a gold ring. Hearing this, police grew increasingly concerned. Suspecting something serious had occurred, they asked Lang's daughter to bring the keys to the apartment immediately to unlock the door. Alarmed, she hurried over without delay. Officers pushed the door open. A strong smell of blood filled the air, even before turning on the lights. The dim hallway light revealed a woman lying naked and covered in wounds and blood inside the apartment. Police believed this was the young woman who had been reported missing. The apartment, slightly over 100 square feet, was splattered with bright red blood stains everywhere on the wardrobe, chairs, bed sheets, clothing, floor, walls, and even the ceiling. Emergency responders were called immediately, but sadly confirmed the woman was already deceased. Forensic examiners later confirmed the victim was indeed Yang Zhu. At this point, police officially opened a case and focused their investigation on Yang's boyfriend, identifying him as the prime suspect. The most urgent task was to locate Lang Yao. Cheng Lang's daughter recounted that when her father tearfully apologized, he mentioned he would return to mainland China. Police notified immigration authorities to restrict his travel, but were informed that Lang had already crossed the Luwu checkpoint into mainland China at noon. Police contacted Chinese authorities to request assistance in locating Lang. Meanwhile, forensic investigators at the scene began collecting evidence and conducted an autopsy on Yang Zhu. Working to reconstruct the events leading to the crime, police found a blood-stained kitchen knife on the floor, believed to be the murder weapon. Experts analyzed blood patterns throughout the apartment and concluded that the victim had been violently attacked with the knife, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Investigators estimated the attack had paused at some point before resuming. a behavior that often indicates the perpetrator tortured the victim, inflicting initial injuries to instill fear and force her to reveal informationally. A condom containing semen was found at the scene. Tests were needed to determine whether the semen belonged to Leng Yaocheng. The autopsy revealed Yang was approximately 5 feet, 4 inches tall, and weighed 108 pounds. Semen was detected inside her body, and further testing was required to confirm if it matched Leng's DNA on Yang's neck. Signs of strangulation were evident, and her vocal cords were bruised in addition to strangulation marks. Yang had 213 stab wounds spread across her head, shoulders, arms, chest, back, abdomen, and thighs. Her forearms and both hands showed numerous injuries, believed to be defensive wounds sustained while trying to shield herself from the knife. This indicated that Yang was conscious during the attack. What was most horrifying was that over 80% of the wounds were inflicted on her head alone, many deep enough to reach the bone. 5 of Yang's teeth had been broken. Such brutality shocked even the most seasoned investigators. The fatal wound was a stab that pierced through her skull into her brain. However, because of the large number of wounds, forensic experts could not determine the exact order in which they occurred, leaving the sequence of events open to speculation. Ultimately, only the perpetrator truly knew what happened. While police investigated the crime scene, Leng Yaocheng called his daughter from China, saying he had returned to his hometown in Guangdong province. Leng hinted that after visiting his parents' graves, he planned to end his life, telling his daughter, "In a day or two, I might go to heaven. So remember to light incense for me." His daughter advised him not to do this, and to return to Hong Kong to face this situation. But Leng repeatedly apologized before hanging up, and she was unable to reach him again while everyone anxiously waited. The situation took a sudden turnaround. 7:30 p.m. the next evening, September 13th, Leng unexpectedly returned to Hong Kong via Shenzhen Bay Port and was immediately arrested during interrogation. Leng openly confessed to killing his girlfriend Yang, saying, "I killed her. She provoked me." He also detailed the events leading to the crime to understand the conflict between them. Let's look at their backgrounds. Leng Yaocheng was born in 1970 and was 39 years old at the time of the crime. He was born and raised in Jiangmen, Guangdong province. After high school, he joined the military and served as a driver in China at 24. Leng married his first wife, and they had a daughter in 2004. Leng's wife moved to Hong Kong since Leng did not have a Hong Kong identity card. He and their daughter stayed in China, occasionally visiting his wife in Hong Kong despite the long-distance relationship. Things were manageable, however. In 2006, Leng discovered by chance that his wife was having an affair in Hong Kong. To eventually reconciled but divorced, agreeing that Leng and their daughter would move to Hong Kong before the divorce was finalized. After that, Leng continued living with his daughter in Jiangmen. It was there that Leng met the victim, Yang Zuthi, connected through a game of mahjong, and Yang, a 32-year-old woman, also from Jiangmen, immediately caught his attention. Yang and Leng hit it off right away, sharing a natural bond. Yang Zu was lively and charming, but at first Leng didn't think much of their connection. Soon, he learned that Yang was married and had a daughter. She even introduced her husband, who lived in Hong Kong, to Leng. As their interactions deepened, Leng realized they had a lot in common. Both were from Jiangmen, both had spouses living in Hong Kong, and both had daughters. The only difference was that Leng didn't have a Hong Kong identity card, while Yang did, allowing her to live there long-term. Their relationship grew closer, becoming increasingly secretive. At one point, when Yang was unsure how to handle a pregnancy resulting from an affair, she confided in Leng and asked for his help. Leng accompanied her to Shenzhen, where she underwent an abortion. After that, their relationship turned more intimate, and they officially became a couple. Yang hid their relationship from her husband and moved in with Leng and his daughter in Jiang. After living together for several months, Yang decided to return to Hong Kong to live with her husband and daughter. Heartbroken but aware he had no legal means to live in Hong Kong, Yang could only watch her leave. Whether it was due to difficulty adjusting to life in Hong Kong or missing Leng and Jiangmin. Yang soon decided to return to Jiangmin. She even asked her husband for a divorce. Leng and Yang then openly lived as a couple. They promised that once Leng received his Hong Kong identity card, he would divorce his wife on Leng's 40th birthday, February 1st, 2010. They planned to marry officially in Hong Kong and begin a new chapter together, filled with hope and anticipation for the future. Tragically, they would never see that day. On April 1st, 2009, 5 months before the crime, Leng finally received his Hong Kong identity card and moved there with his daughter. He rented a room of just over 100 square feet on the 5th floor of the Wong building on Hunghua Street, where the crime later took place. The rent was over 2,000 Hong Kong dollars per month. Leng chose this location because it was affordable and close to Yang's workplace, a convenience store on Ucha Street. Shortly after, Yang also moved in with Leng and his daughter. Though Leng didn't have a stable job, he worked hard, earning about 10,000 Hong Kong dollars, approximately $1,280 monthly through odd jobs, such as moving houses and assisting with construction on the surface. After moving to Hong Kong, everything seemed to be going well. He only needed to wait a few more months before finalizing his divorce, so they could officially be together. But all of this proved to be an illusion. Not long after living together, problems began to surface in their relationship. After his arrest, Leng explained to police that shortly after moving to Hong Kong and living as a family of 3, Yang told him she wanted a more private life, just the two of them, and no longer wanted to live with his daughter. Since Leng was deeply in love with Yang, and his ex-wife also lived in Hong Kong, he agreed to Yang's request and took his daughter to live with his ex-wife. This left Leng and Yang to begin their life together as a couple. Leng said he treated Yang with great care, cooking for her and handling all household chores. When he learned Yang suffered from foot pain after long hours standing at work, he massaged her feet every evening and helped her put on clothes and socks when she went out. He spoiled her in every way. First, Yang welcomed this care. They had once vowed to endure hardships together when coming to Hong Kong, but by July 2009, just 3 months after moving, their relationship started to show cracks. It began when Leng injured his hand while working to save money. He returned to China for treatment. Yang became suspicious, believing he was using the trip as an excuse to chase women and enjoy himself. Leng told police that Yang even threatened him, saying, "If you don't come back to me, you can find girls in China, but I can find men here." He recalled clearly returning home on July 20th and finding Yang naked on the bed, happily talking on the phone with someone. When he asked who it was, she ignored him. A few days later, on July 24th, Leng found a used condom in the toilet. Since they had discovered early on that Yang was allergic to condoms and had stopped using them, Leng asked about it. Yang claimed the toilet was clogged and challenged him, saying, "Did you see any man come here with your own eyes?" From that moment, Leng's suspicions grew, and their relationship deteriorated. By early August, he found new towels and a toothbrush in their home, which only deepened his doubts. When Leng confronted Yang about the new towels and toothbrush, she responded harshly, saying, "If you can tolerate it, then tolerate it. If you can't, just jump off the building and die after that." Their arguments became frequent and intense. Leng believed Yang had completely changed after moving to Hong Kong. He suspected that while he was away in China for treatment, Yang had found a new lover, though he didn't know who. He suspected it might be the convenience store manager, as Yang often praised him and acted close to him. Leng told police that these suspicions weren't the real trigger for what happened. What truly pushed him to decide to kill Yang was what occurred the day before the incident on September 11th. While working odd jobs in UN, long around 3 p.m., Leng called Yang to ask if she wanted anything for dinner. To his shock, a man's voice answered on the phone. When he asked who it was, Yang claimed it was just the TV sound, but Leng knew she never watched TV. He immediately suspected someone else was at their home after finishing work. He hurried back to their apartment in Zhengmen. When he arrived around 5:15 p.m., Yang wasn't there, but he noticed the bed sheets and blanket were disheveled and still warm. Further inspection revealed pubic hairs on the bed and pillow that did not belong to him. Lang also noticed that the trash bin had been emptied, unusual since Yang rarely did housework or took out the trash. Convinced Yang was hiding something, Lang searched every floor of the building, checking trash bins for their apartment's trash bag. He eventually found it between the second and fifth floors. When asked how he knew it belonged to them, Lang explained that all household items were bought by him, and the trash contained a pink box of a Chinese brand of feminine hygiene products. Yang used he had personally thrown that pink box into the trash earlier that morning, so he was certain it was their trash. Opening the bag, he found a tissue-wrapped slippery object, a used condom. Still warm and containing fluid, he immediately called Yang to confront her, asking if she had brought a lover home. Yang denied it when Lang pressed her about where she was. She said she was having dinner with her ex-husband in Mongkok, then abruptly hung up. Knowing Yang's ex-husband, Lang called him and confirmed that Yang wasn't with him, determined to catch her. Lang searched all over Mongkok, hoping to find Yang and confirm if the convenience store manager was her lover, but despite his efforts, he couldn't find her. Finally overwhelmed, he called Yang again, told her what he had found, and demanded she return home quickly. But Yang didn't care about his accusations. Searched for her from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m., but with no luck. He went home to wait and kept calling Yang, but she didn't answer. Around 1 a.m., he heard the sound of a key turning in the door. Lang said, "At last, I waited for Yang to come back." When she entered, she smelled of alcohol and immediately became aggressive, scolding him for being suspicious. Lang took her phone to check, but found nothing, not because Yang was innocent, but because she had deleted all her messages and call history. Around 3 a.m., Lang left the house and went to the convenience store where Yang worked. He bought 2 cans of beer and waited for the store manager, hoping for a direct confrontation. But after finishing the beer and still not seeing the manager, he returned home. When he arrived, he found Yang in bed, talking on the phone in a provocative and challenging tone. Lang snatched the phone from her and accused her of speaking with another man Yang, then completely lost her temper, yelling, "Who I talk to is none of your business." She mocked Lang for rummaging through the trash for evidence and taunted him, "You think I'm cheating? I'll show you what cheating really is. I have many men on the side. I can call whoever I want. Even the ugliest ones are better looking than you, and every one of them is better in bed than you if you can't take it. Go jump out of here," Lang said. He felt worthless after her insults, and even tried 3 times to open the window and jump out. But Yang stopped him each time after about half an hour of arguing. Yang called her ex-husband, falsely claiming Lang had hit her. When Lang heard this, he grabbed Yang's phone and apologized to her ex-husband, saying Lang took the condom he had found earlier that day and confronted Yang about it. But she claimed she was allergic to condoms and couldn't have used one. Lang recalled, "I don't know why, but after that, there was a moment of silence, and then we had sex again." However, afterward, Yang continued to insult him about his sexual performance, saying, "You're useless. I meet men outside who are better than you, bigger, last longer. You're pathetic, only lasting 2 minutes." Lang said Yang even took the condom he had found in the trash and shoved it into his mouth, mocking, "If you want to slander me, then eat this. Maybe it'll help you last longer among all the men. You're the useless one, can't even make money, and your manhood is nothing." Hearing these words, Lang said he lost control. He slapped Yang twice, then squeezed her neck for about 10 seconds after releasing her. Yang didn't stop but kept taunting him, "If you had that strength earlier, I wouldn't have needed to cheat," Lang said. He didn't want to argue anymore, but Yang continued, saying, "Your ex-wife cheated on you. To who do you think you are? Your daughter was born because your wife cheated." Hearing this enraged Lang, he grabbed a knife, pointed it at Yang, and warned her to stop talking. But instead of stopping, Yang provoked him further, daring, "Do you have the guts to stab me?" Lang said He lost control and slashed Yang twice across the face with the knife. However, he quickly regretted it and apologized. Helping her stop the bleeding, he offered to take her to the hospital, but Yang responded, "Who would want me like this now? I'm only worried about my daughter. Just go ahead and kill me. I didn't expect to die at 35 by your hands." Lang said that hearing these words somehow pushed him to raise the knife again and continue slashing at Yang. He couldn't remember how long it lasted during this time. He considered jumping out the window or going to the rooftop, but he didn't want to die without knowing the truth about Yang's affair. He wanted to have the condom tested to see if it belonged to the convenience store manager, but didn't know how eventually. Lang decided to see his daughter one last time and visit his parents' graves before ending his life after visiting the graves in China. He attempted to overdose on sleeping pills, but was saved by others. He later regretted the attempt, and recalling his daughter's words, returned to Hong Kong to turn himself in. This was the version of events Lang Yaoyang confessed to after his arrest, of course. This is only Len's one-sided account, and its truthfulness requires further investigation. Next, we will see if the truth can be uncovered in court. Will Lang be able to clear his doubts before the court? Will we discover who Yang's lover really was, whether it was the convenience store manager, the regular customer the manager mentioned, or if there was no affair at all? 1 year after the incident, on October 11th, 2010, the sensational case was officially brought to trial at the Supreme Court. Lang Yaoyang was charged with murder, but denied intentional homicide, admitting only to manslaughter. His defense attorney argued that at the time of the incident, Lang had lost emotional control and acted out of provocation by the victim. However, the prosecution questioned the credibility of Lang's testimony. For example, Lang claimed he hadn't had sex with Yang for several months, but just before the incident, they suddenly had sex. In fact, the semen found in Yang's body was confirmed to be Lang's. The sudden intimacy after months of no sexual contact seemed illogical. Lang explained that he didn't understand why, but at that moment, Yang appeared very eager, which led to their having sex. Yang's ex-husband, Luya, first shared how he met his ex-wife. He explained that they had known each other since childhood in Jiangmen, and described Yang as cheerful, hardworking, and having a great personality. After graduating, she worked as a secretary in China. They fell in love, married, and he arranged for her to move to Hong Kong. Though Yang had a Hong Kong ID card, she did not live there. Later, a relative in China informed Luya that they had seen Yang with another man. When he confronted her, she denied it. Eventually, they divorced, but Luya admitted he still loved Yang and that they kept in touch. Once confided in him that she wanted to break up with Lang, but Lang kept pursuing her. Yang also told Luya that Lang had a violent temper and would not let her go if she tried to break up. However, Luya acknowledged that Yang had hidden from him the fact that she was living with Lang. He described Yang as stubborn, persistent, and capable of manipulating men. Luya also recalled that around 5 a.m. on the day of the incident, Yang called him saying she had argued with Lang. She expressed wanting to separate, but Lang became agitated and threatened to jump out the window. Lang left the house, but called later saying Lang had called Yang, telling her he had no money and wanted to come back to sleep at her place. Luya said that Yang sounded very frightened during the call. The next morning, he tried calling Yang 4 or 5 times, but was unable to reach her. The convenience store manager described Yang as a diligent employee with excellent customer service skills. He said he had offered her additional responsibilities, including a management or office position, and even promised the store manager role if he opened a second location. However, the manager noted that Yang never showed much interest in pursuing a managerial role. When questioned in court about suggestions that Yang used sex to advance her career, he firmly denied such claims, calling them untrue. A 39-year-old minibus driver named Qin Bushong was also called to testify. Notably, Qin wore a mask and glasses covering most of his face during his testimony, usual since witnesses are generally expected to show their faces, to allow judges and juries to observe their expressions and body language. Chin spoke quietly and hesitantly, often stumbling over his words. When asked about personal information, he remained silent until repeatedly prompted by the judge. So, who was this mysterious minibus driver? It turned out he was the lover Lang Yaoyang had been searching for, and the regular customer. The convenience store manager mentioned to the police. Jin testified that before the incident, he drove the M45 minibus route between Mingan Hospital and Uchea Road in early August, about a month before the crime. He met Yang at the convenience store on Uchea Road. They quickly became friends. Spending time together and going out to eat, Yang confided in Chin about her troubled relationship, with Lang telling him that Lang often became angry and frightened her. Accusing her of cheating, she also revealed that Lang had once smashed a phone in their house with a knife in frustration, and that she wanted to break up with him. Chin said that on September 11th, the day before the incident, knowing Lang had to work, he arranged to meet Yang outside, but she asked him to come to her apartment. Chin brought 2 condoms with him, and they had sex twice in the apartment where the crime later occurred. Both times they used condoms, which Chin carefully wrapped and discarded in a trash bin, located on the stairwell between the 2nd and 3rd floors of the building. Afterward, they went to eat cake in Jordan, and then had dinner in Mongkok. During dinner, Yang received a call from Lang, who said he had found used condoms in their trash, and demanded that she return home immediately. Chin expressed concern for Yang's safety and advised her not to return, but she insisted on going back the next day. When Chin was unable to contact Yang afterward, he instructed her supervisor to report her disappearance to the police. One notable point during Chin's testimony was his hesitation when asked about his marital status initially. He said he couldn't remember. Only after the defense presented documents did he admit that he was married. Chin emphasized in court that apart from the 2 encounters on September 11th, he had never had sex with Yang. During cross-examination, Chin admitted that to protect his family and wife, he had downplayed the nature of his relationship with Yang. After several days of trial, the jury, composed of 4 men and 3 women, deliberated and reached a unanimous verdict in less than 4 hours, finding Lang Yaoyang guilty of murder. The judge strongly condemned Lang for his brutality and cold-heartedness, remarking that the condition of Yang's body was the most horrific he had witnessed in his many years on the bench. Ultimately, Lang was sentenced to life imprisonment to spare the jury from the emotional impact of the victim's graphic injuries. Prosecutors chose not to present certain disturbing images in court while Yang's fate was sealed. Prison was not the final chapter for Lang. Over the next 12 years, he appealed multiple times. He underwent 3 trials. Each time he was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment, but was allowed to appeal. In his final appeal in November 2020, the Supreme Court accepted his case, and in July 2021, downgraded his conviction to manslaughter, granting him immediate release. The ruling emphasized that subjecting Lang to a 4th trial would place undue pressure on him, noting that having already undergone 3 trials was sufficient. It had been 12 years since Lang's arrest. Considering his guilty plea and good behavior while incarcerated, his sentence effectively amounted to 27 years. This 27-year term far exceeded the typical penalty for manslaughter, and even if Lang had been convicted of murder, the actual time served would likely have ranged between 20 and 30 years. Story 3. On Sunday, February 14th, 1999, Valentine's Day, Singh was deeply worried. She had been unable to contact her close friend, Chong Man, for several days. Sensing something was wrong, she decided to call Chong's younger brother and go to home to check on him. They knocked on the door, but received no response. Chong's younger brother recalled that Chong had a good relationship with a neighbor, and they often held spare keys for each other. They asked the neighbor to help retrieve the key, but to their shock, the lock had been changed, leaving them locked out. Growing increasingly concerned, they stopped hesitating and called the police. Receiving the report, officers from the New Territories police station were dispatched immediately after being briefed on the situation. They decided to forcibly enter the apartment inside. They found a layout with a living room at the center, flanked by a kitchen and bathroom. With 2 bedrooms on either side, the apartment was in disarray, and a foul odor permeated the air following the smell. The police discovered a large iron chest in one of the bedrooms, measuring 35 inches long, 24 inches wide, and 24 inches high when opened. The top layer contained clothing, the middle was filled with coarse salt, and beneath it lay the dismembered body of a man. The body had been cut into 6 parts: head, torso, 2 legs, and 2 arms. The left hand and left foot were missing. The head was tightly wrapped in white cloth, with eyes wide open and eyeballs bulging, a horrifying sight, indicating the victim had died with his eyes open. The entire body was covered in coarse salt, likely an attempt to preserve the corpse and mask the smell. Forensic examination revealed the victim had sustained 13 stab wounds, the most severe running from chest to abdomen and penetrating the lungs. Other wounds were inflicted post-mortem. Blunt force trauma was found on the head and neck, probably caused by a hard object, though the brain was unharmed. These injuries could have caused unconsciousness. The cause of death was determined to be excessive blood loss, with the estimated time of death in the early morning hours of February 10th. After Chi Sing and Chong's younger brother identified the body, police confirmed the victim was Changa, 23-year-old man. Chong was known for loyalty and had minor ties to organized crime, often helping friends in need. His family relationships were strained, leading him to move out early. Though he remained deeply protective of his younger brother, Chong had a hot temper and could easily lose control over small issues, making it difficult for him to hold a steady job. After news of Chong's death spread, many gathered near his home to burn joss paper in farewell, and his friends went to the New Territories police station, demanding swift action. The police summoned Chi Sing, who had reported the case, to assist with the investigations. Singh described himself and Chong as close friends, both aged 23 with much in common. In the early hours of February 10th, Chi Sing recalled that for several days prior, he and Chong had been drinking and eating late-night meals at a roadside stall. Chong, usually reserved and private, appeared unusually downcast, as if something serious troubled him. Worried, Chi Sing pressed Chong for details. After a few drinks, Chong confided that he had noticed strange behavior from his girlfriend, Yaman. She had been sneaking out, dressing up, and laughing at her phone when confronted. She offered various excuses. Chong suspected she was seeing someone else. Chi Sing hesitated but finally revealed the truth. Yaman had indeed been unfaithful months earlier. He had often seen her behaving intimately with another man in public, assuming Chong's relationship with her had already broken down. He had kept silent until now. As Chi Sing recounted this, Chong's anger grew more apparent, realizing he should have been told sooner. Chi Sing felt guilty and regretful. To calm his friend, he suggested the man might be a distant relative, but Chong could no longer contain himself. Suddenly standing, he said he needed to go home to deal with matters, but would return shortly. Asking Chi Sing to wait minutes turned into an hour, but Chong never returned. Sensing something was wrong, Chi Sing went to Chong's apartment at Unit 2936 in Sun House, Thoing Village, feeling a growing sense of unease when he knocked the first time. Yaman answered from inside, but refused to open the door. He faintly heard a hoarse voice, likely Chong, saying, "Don't hit," before loud music began playing, drowning out any further sounds. Chi Sing knocked again and called out that he wanted to take Chong out for drinks, but Yaman continued to refuse entry and shouted for him to leave, still convinced Chong was inside. Chi Sing refused to give up on his third knock. He said his phone battery was dead and asked if he could come in to charge it. Shortly after, Yaman opened the door briefly, threw a power bank at him, and slammed the door shut, although her movements were quick. Chi Sing caught a glimpse of a strange woman wearing glasses, likely Yaman's age, inside the apartment, despite persistently knocking a total of 7 times afterward. Chi Sing received no response and saw no sign of Chong. Eventually, he gave up and went home. thinking it best to let the couple resolve their arguments without interference. Little did he know that the next time he would see Chong, it would be as a lifeless body based on Chi Sing's testimony. Police immediately suspected Yaman was involved in Chong's death, making her the primary suspect. However, no trace of Yaman or her daughter was found inside the apartment. Inquiries with neighbors, relatives, and friends revealed no knowledge of their whereabouts. Following Chi Sing's leads, police identified the glasses-wearing woman who had been at the apartment with Yaman. On the day of the crime, she told police she hadn't seen Chong that day, claiming she had only been there briefly before leaving in the evening. Police then issued a warrant for Yaman's arrest and intensified their search for Chong's missing left hand and futon. February 17th, 18 miles from the New Territories, a man named Kwanawa came forward at a police station, claiming to be Yaman's ex-boyfriend. He said he was shocked when he saw the police wanted notice and only believed it after. Yaman called him to confess to the crime. During the call, Kwano urged her to turn herself in and even offered to accompany her, but Yaman refused and hung up. Kwano explained that he came forward voluntarily to avoid being mistakenly investigated as an accomplice. He met Yaman in January of the previous year when she was selling candy at a flea market in Victoria Park. Attracted by her youthful beauty, he approached her and asked for her contact information. They began dating and officially became a couple on their first date. At the time, Kwano did not know Yaman already had a boyfriend and a child. He treated her well, buying thoughtful gifts. On holidays, however, after a few months, Yaman abruptly ended the relationship without explanation, leaving Kwano heartbroken and unsatisfied despite the breakup. They remained in touch and maintained a friendship. Yaman's feelings toward Kwano were unclear, but his intentions were straightforward. He wanted to reconcile. On the morning of February 10th at 7:00 a.m., Yaman called Kwano, asking for help with a classmate who needed assistance moving some items. Kwano agreed at 9:00 a.m. He arrived punctually at Yaman's home near Thawing Village in the New Territories. After waiting briefly, Yaman and her classmate brought out a 4-foot wooden ladder and 2 buckets and placed them in the trunk of Kwano's car. Yaman then asked Kwano to drive to Yonlong. Upon arrival, the 2 women unloaded the items and carried them away, while Kwano waited in the car. 15 minutes later, they returned and told him the task was complete. The 3 then went to have lunch at a restaurant. On the way back, Yaman mentioned her classmate had accidentally broken a kitchen knife while cutting chicken at a friend's house. She asked Kwano to buy a new knife and a pair of scissors as replacements with the case exposed. Kwano realized with shock that the knife and scissors he had purchased might have been used as tools to dismember the body. Yaman might have killed her boyfriend, and her phone confession confirmed his suspicions. Kwano fell into a state of extreme panic. The police immediately devised a plan for Kwano to contact Yaman, lure her out to meet, and arrest her. Turned out the classmate Kwano mentioned was the same mysterious woman Chi Sing had seen at the crime scene. This classmate told police that Yaman had asked her for help moving some items that day she hadn't thought much of. Yaman agreed, but claimed she didn't know what the items were for, and was now unable to contact Yaman. The police pinned their hopes on Kwano. However, Yaman remained very cautious despite Kwano's attempts to persuade her. She refused to meet. Fortunately, she was still willing to, despite staying in touch over the phone with Kwano's cooperation. The police successfully arrested Payman 12 days after the crime, on February 22nd, at an apartment on Shanghai Street in Mung Kok. Her 4-year-old daughter was taken into protective custody after her arrest. Payman did not attempt to hide her actions and gave a full confession. Born in 1980, Payman had a younger sister in 1994. At age 14, she attended New Territories Catholic Secondary School, where she excelled academically and was soft-spoken. She held several leadership roles, including cheerleading captain and president of the Chinese club. An introverted yet strikingly attractive girl, Payman drew admiration and was even featured in several commercials, including a popular shampoo brand. In 1994, one day, Payman visited a karaoke bar where a classmate worked part-time coincidentally. Chong, who was 18 at the time, also worked there. The moment Chong saw Paimon, he was captivated by her pure and unique demeanor and fell for her instantly through their mutual classmate. He obtained her phone number, and they began staying in touch. Paimon often visited Chong's home with friends, maintaining a friendly relationship. One day, overwhelmed by his feelings for Paimon, Chong lost control and, taking advantage of a moment when no one else was around, assaulted her. He later regretted the incident and apologized, claiming alcohol had clouded his judgment. He promised to take full responsibility. Pen did not believe Chong's apology, but, fearing he might use the incident against her, pretended nothing had happened and told him she would not report it to the police. Overjoyed, Chong began treating Paimon, even better touched by what seemed genuine feelings. Paimon gradually developed affection for him, and the two began a romantic relationship by the end of 1994. While still in 10th grade, Paimon unexpectedly became pregnant. Being so young, raising a child was a daunting challenge. Both knew that if people found out the baby was he might face legal trouble. After discussion, they decided to keep the pregnancy secret and planned an abortion. However, after an examination, the doctor deemed Paimon too underweight and physically weak. An abortion could endanger her life. Reluctantly, they chose to keep the baby. Paimon continued attending high school while pregnant. Thanks to her petite frame, she concealed her growing belly by wearing loose clothing whenever anyone expressed suspicion. She dismissed it as weight gain from eating too much up to delivery. Her friends, classmates, and even her family, who lived with her, never realized she was pregnant. By May 1995, as her due date neared, Paimon sought no help from anyone or doctor. Visits she gave birth, alone in the bathroom at Chong's home, to prevent anyone discovering the baby's connection to Chong. She gave the child her own last name and named her Young. Unlike Paimon, Chong saw the baby's arrival as a burden and insisted she abandon the child at a hospital entrance. Paimon adamantly refused, and after much pleading, Chong reluctantly agreed to help care for the baby. She left the child at Chong's home and visited daily after school to care for her daughter, returning home each night. This became their routines. Still a high school student without income, Paimon struggled to cover the child's expenses, especially as Chong's work was unstable to manage. Paimon told her family she wanted to rent a place outside the home to focus on her studies. Her family believed her and began sending her a monthly allowance of 1,000 Hong Kong dollars. With this, Paimon moved in with Chong. The steady income made Chong lazy, and he eventually quit his part-time job altogether, despite hardships. Paimon refused to give up on her education. She balanced studying and caring for her daughter, successfully completing her pre-university program and achieving good results on her college entrance exams. However, after much thought, she gave up the opportunity to attend college and stayed at Chong's home to care for her daughter. Effectively becoming a housewife, she kept this decision from her family, lying that she had been accepted into college and still needed to rent a place. Her family did not question her and continued sending monthly allowance. By 1996 and 1997, Paimon had given birth to 2 more children, yet with their meager income, she could not afford to raise them and abandoned both, one at a nearby subway station, the other at the entrance of a hospital in the New Territories. Despite sacrificing much for Chong, Paimon found no happiness. Not only did she live in poverty, but she also endured Chong's volatile temper. He frequently beat her, leaving bruises all over her body. Over time, her love for him turned into deep resentment. Often thought that if it weren't for Chong, she might have gone to college, possibly become a star, and pursued her dreams. These thoughts gradually led her to consider leaving Chong. In January 1998, while shopping at a market, she met Kwano, a painter whose gentle nature was a stark contrast to her abusive boyfriend. For the first time, she felt cared for and loved, and she quickly fell for him, hiding the fact that she had a boyfriend and children. She began a relationship with Kwano, He treated her exceptionally well, making her both happy and anxious, aware that Chung would beat her if he found out about the affair. She ended the relationship after only a few months in April of the same year, while buying street food with her younger sister. Payman encountered a tall, dark-skinned man who immediately caught her attention boldly. She approached him and asked for his contact information. The man turned out to be a firefighter captivated by Payman's youthful beauty. He quickly fell for her, unaware of her past. The two soon entered into a romantic relationship. Unlike before, Payman did not hide this relationship and openly dated him in shopping malls. After 6 months of dating, by November 1998, Chung noticed her frequent absences and became suspicious, although he repeatedly questioned her. Payman evaded his inquiries with excuses known for his distrustful nature. Chung didn't give up. He demanded that Payman report her whereabouts every time she went out, and occasionally followed her secretly. However, Payman was careful to cover her tracks, and Chung had yet to catch her in the act in the early hours of February 10, 1999. Troubled by his suspicions for a long time, Chung finally confided in his friend, Chi Sing, unbeknownst to him. Chi Sing had already witnessed the affair firsthand. After confirming his doubts, Chung, filled with rage, returned home to confront Payman directly. What followed was a tragic series of events, according to Payman's testimony. In the early hours of February 10th, Chung returned home and unleashed a torrent of verbal abuse. Venting all his frustrations from the past days, he also began to physically assault her in an act of self-defense. She grabbed an iron hammer and a stool nearby to fight back during the altercation. She picked up a kitchen knife to threaten Chung, but accidentally injured him, losing control. Chung collapsed in a pool of blood, overwhelmed by the memory of the abuse she had suffered and the ruin of her future. Payman continued, attacking him with the stool, channeling all her anger and resentment toward him at that moment. Chi Sing arrived to check on the situation and knocked on the door in her panic. Payman refused to let him in, worried that he might hear Chung's cries. She dragged Chung into the bathroom and turned on loud music to muffle the noise. Time passed, and Chung succumbed to blood loss. 4-year-old Yu Young witnessed the entire scene through a crack in the bathroom door and began crying in fear to prevent her daughter from seeing the traumatic sight again. Payman decided she needed to handle the body. She found an iron chest in the house, typically used for storing tools like hammers and saws. After emptying its contents, she realized the chest was too small to fit Chung's body and decided to dismember him. However, the kitchen knife she had was not sharp enough, and her small frame made the task extremely difficult. After hours of slow progress, exhausted, she covered the body with a cloth, left it, and went to bed the next morning. Payman took her daughter out for breakfast at a tea shop. She then called her ex-boyfriend Kwano, asking for help to move some items, using a flimsy excuse. She also asked him to buy a new kitchen knife and a pair of scissors. Upon returning home, she resumed dismembering the body. The new tools were much sharper, allowing her to cut the body into 6 parts and fit them into the iron chest. However, the space was still tight, so she removed the left hand and left foot. She sprinkled coarse salt over the body parts in the chest to mask the odor, then covered them with clothes and shoes. The left hand and foot were discarded in a nearby garbage bin. Thinking she had successfully hidden the evidence, Payman believed the ordeal was over. However, the crime was quickly uncovered. Although had unknowingly purchased the tools used in the dismemberment, he was unaware of their intended purpose. Once he learned the truth, he voluntarily reported the matter to the police and was not prosecuted. Similarly, the classmate identified as C was not found to have any direct involvement in the crime and was also not charged. A year after the crime, on February 3, 2000, the trial took place at Hong Kong's High Court. The defendant, Payman, was charged with murder and obstructing the lawful burial of a body in court. Payman maintained that she had killed Chung unintentionally in self-defense and had dismembered his body out of fear, not as part of a premeditated murder. The jury, consisting of 5 women and 2 men, deliberated for 7 hours before reaching a unanimous verdict. The court found Payman not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter. She was sentenced to 9 years in prison for manslaughter and 3 years for obstructing the lawful burial of a body, with the sentences combined for a total of 12 years. The crime, occurring on Valentine's Day and involving a dismembered corpse, was gruesome and bizarre, captivating the media and sparking widespread discussion and speculation. Some believed that Payman couldn't have dismembered the body alone. Her small stature made it seem implausible that she could have overpowered and dragged Chong, a large man, without assistance. Many suspected that she might have had help. However, Payman denied any direct involvement by others. Whether the latter and 2 buckets transported by Payman and the classmate were connected to the crime remains unclear, as public information did not disclose further details. Still, her presence at the crime scene raised suspicions among the public. Some people also found Chi-Sing's actions suspicious. On the day of the crime, he clearly heard Chong's voice, but chose not to call the police. Chi-Sing explained that he feared calling the police would expose the existence of Chong's 4-year-old daughter, which could lead to Chong's imprisonment. While his explanation might be understandable to a certain extent, it appeared weak when weighed against moral standards. Additionally, some speculated that such a loud argument late at night would have likely disturbed the neighbors, yet no neighbors reported hearing anything that day, leading to suspicions that the apartment might not have been the initial crime scene. Of course, all of this remains conjecture, with no concrete evidence. Panman was released from prison in 2009, changed her name, and disappeared from public view. However, the story did not end there. Her daughter, Yu Young, after losing her father and with her mother imprisoned, was placed in an orphanage and later adopted by a family. Unfortunately, she never felt warmth or connection in her new home. The horrifying memories of her parents' violent conflict on that fateful day continued to haunt her. The crime haunted Yu Young for years. She became withdrawn and introverted, avoiding social interactions. Though she initially inherited Pan's intelligence and excelled in school, her attitude changed drastically during adolescence. At 15, she lost interest in studying, dropped out of school, and left her adoptive parents' home, falling in with a bad crowd. She became addicted to drugs and got involved in drug trafficking. At 19, she was arrested by the police in court. Yu Young admitted that her family's circumstances were no excuse for her actions, saying, "Thank you for arresting me so I can stop dealing these things." Her adoptive mother, present in court, declared that regardless of public opinion, she would continue to care for Yu Young. Despite these intentions, Yu Young followed in her mother's footsteps and was sentenced to 5 years and 8 months in prison. At the age of 19, Yu Young's story stirred public discussion and inspired a filmmaker to adapt the more than 25-year tale of mother and daughter into a movie titled Elisa's Day in 2021. The film revisited the old case and prompted society to reflect on the challenges faced by young people. Pan's life, from an innocent young girl to a prisoner behind bars, was a heavy and arduous journey. Her story serves as a poignant reminder of how a single decision can alter the course of an entire life. The intertwined fates of Pan and Yu Young leave lingering questions and form a sorrowful cycle that evokes both pity and reflection. Were they driven by their circumstances, or were their tragic destinies the inevitable consequence of poor choices? Payman, a young woman with a promising future, ultimately buried her happiness through impulsive and immature decisions. Hurt and cornered, she chose vengeance over seeking help. That cruel act not only took another's life, but also destroyed her own and her daughter's future. Story 4. On a September morning in 1994, the peace of Jamui City, Hengjiang Province, was shattered by a horrifying discovery. Local residents frantically reported to the police station that 2 plastic bags containing human legs had been found in thick bushes along the eastern bank of the Swa River. Before the news settled, the suburban Yonghang Police Division received similar reports. More human body parts were discovered scattered throughout the area. Police quickly arrived at the scene, cordoned off the area, and carefully collected the dismembered remains, packaging each part separately for forensic examination, although many body parts were missing, making victim identification difficult. Preliminary examinations revealed a heartbreaking truth. These were the remains of 3 victims: a man, a woman, and a child. Investigators suspected they belonged to the same family since the riverbank was not the primary crime scene. The investigation faced significant challenges in the early 1990s. Forensic technology was still rudimentary compared to today's standards, making it increasingly difficult to track the perpetrator's trail. Despite the investigators' best efforts, the case became a maze with no exit. Forcing a temporary suspension of the investigation, time passed until June 1995, 9 months after the first discovery, when another chilling report reached the police. Residents found more plastic bags containing human remains in irrigation ditches among rice fields near a bridge in the southern part of the city. Within less than a year, 4 lives had been taken, putting immense pressure on local law enforcement. Each day that passed without finding the perpetrator added to the growing unease among residents at the forensics laboratory. Experts meticulously pieced together the newly discovered remains. The examination revealed that the victim's head was missing, with only some body parts remaining, including the left chest area. Besides determining the victim was male, other clues remained elusive. However, veteran investigators with years of experience began forming sharp hypotheses when combined with autopsy results. What seemed like an unsolvable mystery started revealing new leads. Although the body parts were incomplete, the remaining pieces provided valuable insights into the victim's lifestyle. For instance, yellowed fingernails suggested a long-term smoker, a slightly curved spine, and well-developed leg muscles indicated an office worker who spent long hours sitting based on bone age. The victim was estimated to be between 32 and 35 years old, standing approximately 5 feet 10 inches to 5 feet 11. Through these deductions, investigators began forming a general profile of the victim, but without facial features. Where should they begin? The police devised a strategy. They broadcast an information request on local television during primetime news. Running continuously, the announcement described a male accident victim currently in hospital, approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, with a strong build and a scar on his left wrist. A reward was offered for information, with contact details provided. This broadcast cracked open the case. Shortly after airing, an elderly man called the police, identifying himself as Mr. Dong. He explained that his son, Dong Dak King, had visited him a few days earlier. Mr. Dong had tried calling both his son's home and workplace, but could not reach him, causing fear that something had happened. Investigations revealed that Dong Dak King was 33 years old and worked as a law enforcement officer in Jamui City's judicial system. After his divorce, he lived alone. The last time Mr. Dong saw his son was in late May, when he learned Dong Dak King had started dating a woman surnamed Run. Though he had never met her, Mr. Dong identified his son through the scar on his left wrist, a remnant from a fight when he was cut by a broken bottle. With this information, police quickly traced Dong Dak King's residence through household registration records. However, neighbors had not seen Dong Dak King for some time. The last sighting was on the evening of June 1st, Children's Day, when he returned home with his girlfriend, who neighbors described as strikingly beautiful. With Mr. Dong's permission, police broke into the apartment. The scene was shocking. The home was in disarray, with blood splattered from the living room to the kitchen walls and floors. Small pieces of tissue resembling minced meat were scattered across the floor, creating a horrifying scene. Blood tests confirmed the blood matched Dong Dak King's blood type beyond doubt. This was the primary crime scene. The urgent task became finding Run, Dong Dak King's girlfriend, who might hold crucial information about the case. However, this was complicated. Run was a common name, and police were unsure if it was her real one still. They maintained hope, when they learned the couple had met through a matchmaking service. Investigators began searching over 200 marriage introduction centers across the city in the 1990s. Before computers were common, manually sifting through tens of thousands of paper files seemed nearly impossible, yet, surprisingly, this old-fashioned approach yielded results. They found registration records for Dong Duk King and Ren Si at the Wei Mei Marriage Introduction Center. Using the information and photos from the registration, police narrowed their search to the Dongfan district. By coincidence, when officers arrived to make inquiries, they met an elderly woman visiting residents in the area. Upon seeing the photo, she exclaimed, "Isn't this the third daughter of old Ma from our village?" At last, investigators felt they were getting closer to the truth. Could this third daughter be Dong Dak King's girlfriend, Renia, as police had suspected? It turned out to be an alias according to the elderly woman. The woman's real name was Mei Yan Hong, a renowned beauty from their village with her long black hair and fashionable dress. She attracted much attention, but was often the subject of village gossip. Mei Yan Hong was 28 years old, from Hakan County. Despite being married to a well-off man and having 2 children, she divorced him, dissatisfied with her life, to the Ma family. After her 1993 divorce, Mei Yan Hong moved alone to Jamui City and rented an apartment. They had not seen her for nearly 6 months. Her former classmates and villagers described Mei Yan Hong as friendly and quick to smile, though some found her flirtatious whenever she returned to the village. She wore fashionable clothes, sparking speculation about whether she had found success or married into wealth. Where was Mei Yan Hong now? Police focused their efforts in Jamui City after learning from Mr. Dong about his son's missing savings book, containing 20,000 yuan, approximately $2,500 at the time, and suspecting Mei Yan Hong might have stolen it to withdraw the money. Police began surveilling the city's banking system. Plainclothes officers were stationed at various branches. After more than 2 weeks of patient surveillance, they finally caught Mei Yan Hong one afternoon as she attempted to withdraw money just before the bank closed. Faced with irrefutable evidence and intense questioning in the interrogation room, she was forced to admit to dismembering Dong Dak King's body after he died from alcohol poisoning. However, she insisted the savings book had been promised to her by Dong. Due to striking similarities between the dismemberment techniques in both the September 1994 case and the Dong Dak King case, the Criminal Investigation Department decided to investigate the 2 cases together. As police prepared to deepen their interrogation, perhaps sensing she could no longer hide the truth, Mei Yan Hong suddenly broke into bitter tears. Her painful crying made her seem more like a victim. After calming down, she sighed heavily and said, "Well, you can only die once, whether you kill 1 person or 2. The punishment is the same, death. I might as well tell you everything." Through her confession, investigators uncovered even more horrifying details. Mei Yan Hong admitted to both murders. Looking at her appearance, it was hard to believe this woman could single-handedly kill an entire family of 3, yet the details she revealed painted a picture of cold-blooded brutality after her failed marriage. Yan Hong had moved to Jamui City to start anew. Initially, she planned to open a small shop, dreaming of a peaceful and comfortable life. However, lacking business experience, she quickly learned the harsh realities of competition. Watching her meager capital dwindle, she became desperate for money. Financial worries kept her awake at night as she constantly searched for ways to make quick cash in an unfamiliar city. Yan Hong had few connections in these circumstances. She began paying attention to her landlord's family. The landlord, Su Shu, lived with his wife and young son, and they had a spare room for rent to supplement their income. Little did they know that this ordinary decision to rent out a room would lead to their family's tragic end. Initially, Yan Hong did not use her real name when renting. Introducing herself as Wang Nan, she fabricated a tearful story about how she and her husband had been successful in business until he ran away with a waitress, taking their child and all their assets, left with no choice. She claimed she had to work at a small shop to make ends meet, When she heard the Su family had a room for rent, she inquired after hearing her pitiful story. The kind-hearted couple showed deep sympathy and offered to rent her the room for just 50 yuan per month, half the usual 100 yuan rate at first. The relationship between landlord and tenant seemed harmonious one evening. Yan Hong approached Su Shu with a worried expression. "Mr. Su, I'm so embarrassed," she said. "The shop owner hasn't returned from purchasing inventory, and I haven't received my salary, I'm afraid. I can't pay this month's rent on time. I don't even have money for food." As she spoke, a few tears fell, making her appear utterly pitiable. Su Shu quickly consoled her and gave her 200 yuan for immediate expenses, though 200 yuan was insignificant. Yan Hong pretended to be extremely grateful, repeatedly thanking him while Su Shu took out the money. Yan Hong's eyes fixated on the stack of crisp 100 yuan bills in his wallet. From its thickness, she estimated there was at least 5,000 yuan during their conversation. Su Shu inadvertently revealed that the family planned to take the noon train the next day to visit relatives in the province and would return in about a week. He asked Yan Hong to watch the house. This information came just as Yan Hong was desperate for money. That night, she lay awake, formulating a sinister plan. The next day, August 26th, the Su family invited Yan Hong to join them for breakfast. Seizing the opportunity, she said, "Since you're going on a trip, let me get something to send you off." She hurried to a convenience store and bought 2 bottles of beer. On her way back, she secretly mixed in sleeping pills she had prepared during the meal. Yan Hong was extremely attentive, serving food and pouring beer while speaking sweet, seemingly sincere words. Soon, the sedatives took effect, and all 3 family members began losing consciousness. She quickly searched Su Shu's pockets, took all his cash, then coldly walked to the kitchen, grabbed a sharp knife, and brutally murdered the Kind family standing before the 3 bodies in the room. Yan Hong calculated how to dispose of them. Remembering scenes she'd seen on television, she proceeded to dismember the bodies carefully, placing the parts in various sized plastic bags. When night fell, she used her bicycle to transport the bags to irrigation ditches in the rice fields and under bridges, since neighbors knew the Su family was away visiting relatives. No one suspected anything when they didn't see them for a while after murdering the Su family. Yan Hong showed no fear. Rather than fleeing Jamui City, she moved into a better apartment, having discovered how easily money could be obtained through murder. She devised an even darker plan to continue using similar methods for quick profit. This time, she decided to exploit her beauty to find victims through dating using the same deceptive tactics. She registered at a matchmaking center under the alias Renwei. Her divorce story had changed. She now claimed that her traditional in-laws had thrown her out because she was unable to have children. This fabricated tale won the sympathy of the matchmaking staff, who promised to find her a decent man who would ensure her happiness whenever a promising man registered. They would think of her first one day. A matchmaker excitedly informed Yan Hong about a handsome police officer, standing 5 feet 10, who had registered recently. Dong Dak King, using her beauty and manipulative charm, Yan Hong quickly won Dong's affection. He had no idea he was courting a seasoned killer. After a brief courtship, Yan Hong moved into Dong's apartment. Once living together, she began subtle psychological manipulation, often hinting at her previous husband's wealth to pressure Dong into proving himself financially unaware of her true nature. Dong showed her his savings book containing 20,000 yuan, about $2,500, and promised, sweetly, that the money would be the foundation of their future. Little did he know that this savings book would become his death warrant. In June 2nd, 1995. After an intimate moment, Yan Hong tenderly told Dong he must be tired, then went to the kitchen to prepare 2 dishes and brought out 3 cans of beer from the refrigerator without suspicion. Dong drank the drugged beer. When he became unconscious, Yan Hong searched for the savings book and prepared to kill him at that moment. Someone knocked on the door. Dong's colleague, without missing a beat. Mei Yan-hong played the perfect girlfriend, inviting the colleague in, serving tea, offering cigarettes, and smoothly explaining that Dong had had a bit too much to drink. The colleague tactfully left soon after the visitor left, and the apartment grew quiet again. Yan-hong picked up the knife, drawing on her previous experience. Her movements were practiced and quiet. She dismembered Dong's body so silently that the neighbors were unaware of the horror unfolding next door. In a later interview, Yan-hong admitted she hesitated before killing Dong. She acknowledged he was an ideal marriage candidate, handsome, with a stable job, but the fact that he was a police officer sealed his fate. She realized that if she lived with a law enforcement officer, her previous crimes would eventually be discovered. Thus, she suppressed any feelings that might have developed following her confession. Police located and recovered the victims' heads from various locations around the city. The Jamboree City Intermediate People's Procuratory immediately filed charges, demanding the harshest punishment for Yan-hong, matching both public sentiment and leadership's call for swift justice. With witnesses and evidence in place, the case seemed set to end with a death sentence. However, during the public trial, unexpected complications arose as a serial killer who had taken 4 lives. The case drew widespread attention suddenly. During the first public trial, Yan-hong recanted her earlier confession, claiming innocence and alleging that her admissions had been coerced by police. Her defense lawyer argued that a frail woman could not single-handedly overpower a trained police officer. How could she have killed 3 members of the Su family alone? Perhaps there was a third party involved. The court presented evidence showing Yan-hong had drugged her victims before killing and dismembering them, yet her lawyer countered that chemical analysis and Yan-hong's testimony indicated the drugs could only cause drowsiness or semi-consciousness at most. Under these conditions, it was unlikely Yan-hong could have succeeded alone. No signs of struggle were found, raising suspicions about possible accomplices. While acknowledging Yan-hong's heinous acts deserved punishment, her lawyer warned that rushing to a death sentence without resolving lingering questions could compromise justice and potentially allow a larger criminal to go free. Yan-hong proved a master manipulator during this phase. When pressed by the court about possible accomplices, her answers were deliberately vague and evasive. She would say things like, "I'll take responsibility for what I did alone," but then add, "At this point, naming others wouldn't help anyway." Judges, prosecutors, and spectators understood these as evasions, denying accomplices without naming anyone hurt. Her case, while claiming others without evidence, would do the same. The court adjourned to allow the prosecution to gather more evidence of her solo guilt, while giving Yan-hong a chance to prove her claims about others' involvement in the second trial. A sudden twist occurred when Yan-hong named an alleged accomplice, a man surnamed Wang, who was reportedly wanted for a murder in Wannan County. However, Yan-hong had been in custody at the time of that crime. Still, she offered vivid, detailed stories of how they met, planned the murders, and divided the money, though none of this could be verified at the time. Legal procedures prevented concluding cases while key persons of interest remained at large. This gave Yan-hong another temporary reprieve. Finally, in 1998, the Jamboree City Intermediate People's Court held the third trial. The prosecutor's office thoroughly investigated and proved that Yan-hong's claims about Wang were fabricated. She failed to provide clear physical descriptions. Wang was not in Jamboree at the time of the murders, and no third party could confirm her stories based on this. The court dismissed her diversionary claims and sentenced her to death in 1998. Mei Yan-hong, who had killed 4 people for money, was executed. She had abandoned her husband and children, brutally murdered a kind landlord couple and their innocent child, and killed a police officer who had genuinely cared for her, despite her intelligence and opportunities to choose a better path. Yan-hong chose the worst, using her beauty to manipulate and kill. Story 5 begins on the afternoon of March 13, 2012. In DMI County, Kimingen, DMI City, The local criminal police received a distress call, reporting the discovery of a woman's body in the villa area near Jinhua Road, DMI County. About 20 minutes later, the criminal police team arrived at the scene. The informant, Hu Jiangyang, identified the victim as his younger sister, Ying, a 31-year-old native of Shenli Town, Naxi District, Luo City, Sichuan Province. Ying's body was found curled up in a ravine southwest of the villa complex. She was dressed in pink pajamas, but was barefoot. Her hands, feet, and neck were bound with duct tape, and her head was wrapped in a black plastic bag. When the bag was removed, a blood-soaked cotton towel covered her face. Large bloodstains were visible on the chest area of her pajamas. A preliminary autopsy confirmed that she had been brutally tortured before death. The circumstances of how her body was found added to the mystery, according to her brother, Zhang Yang. On the morning of March 10, 2012, 3 days before the body was discovered, their mother received a call from Ying's boyfriend, Qin. During the call, Qin sounded very worried and reported that Ying had left home on the afternoon of March 9th and had not returned all day. Ying's phone was unreachable, and her text messages went unanswered that same night. Qin had searched for her, but found no clues after receiving Qin's call. Zhang Yang, along with several family members and friends, traveled from their hometown in Luo to Kunming City. That night, they went to the local police station to report Ying's disappearance and began searching places she frequented. On March 13th, 3 days after Ying's disappearance, Zhang Yang and 2 friends visited a villa complex on Kunming's outskirts known as Red Manor, where Qin had purchased a villa about 328 yards from Qin's villa in a sparsely vegetated ravine. They noticed freshly disturbed earth. Suspecting something was wrong, they began digging. Soon, they uncovered a black plastic bag, realizing that further digging could compromise the crime scene. Zhang Yang immediately contacted the police. Later that afternoon, forensic experts completed an autopsy. The examination revealed that Ying had suffered multiple fractures and hemorrhages to her head and chest caused by blunt force trauma. Her cheekbones and the left side of her skull were shattered and collapsed inward, causing severe brain damage that led to her death. The forensic team estimated that Ying had died about 5 days prior to the examination, matching the timeline of her disappearance based on partially digested food found in her stomach and small intestine. They concluded she had died roughly 6 hours after her last meal. To quickly identify the perpetrator, the DHMI County Police focused on Ying's social relationships. The first person questioned was her live-in boyfriend. Qin. Investigation revealed that Qin, 46 years old, was no ordinary citizen. He was the deputy director of the Yunnan Bureau of Aviation Administration, head of the Comprehensive Planning Department, and an expert in water conservancy construction in Y Province. He held the title of senior-level engineer years earlier. Qin had divorced his ex-wife, and his only daughter lived with him in September 2009. Qin met Ying at a hotel in Kunming. Ying, also divorced and raising a 3-year-old son, shared similar life circumstances, despite a 15-year age gap there. Common experiences quickly blossomed into a romantic relationship, and they eventually moved in together. About 6 months later, Ying quit her hotel job due to its demanding nature and low pay. She briefly opened a clothing store but had to close it due to business failure before the incident. Ying was unemployed and had few social connections, rarely going out as she focused on caring for her son. Around 3:00 p.m. on March 9, 2012, Qin received a text from Ying's phone, stating she had reconnected with an old friend and planned to have dinner with them. She asked Qin to pick her up from school because she expected to return late around 10 p.m. Ying never came home that night, and her phone was switched off. Qin spent the entire night searching for her, but found no leads. By morning, he began fearing something terrible had happened. Still, he never imagined that Ying's body would be found near his own villa. The police identified the Red Manor Villa complex where Qin lived as a key location in the investigation. Built in the 1990s, the complex had been completed decades ago, but due to its location on the outskirts of Damai City, had a low occupancy rate. The grounds were overgrown with grass, sparsely inhabited, and somewhat isolated. The Red Manor Villa complex had an eerie and desolate atmosphere. Chin's garden-style villa was located in the northwest corner of the complex, a very secluded spot. According to Chin, both he and Ying rarely stayed there, only visiting occasionally during holidays for relaxation and leisure. When questioned about why Ying's body was found near his villa, Chin claimed to have no knowledge. He speculated that perhaps he had brought a friend to the villa, who then encountered trouble and was buried nearby. If this were true, identifying the old friend mentioned on the day of the incident became a key focus for investigators. However, Ying never provided any specific information about such a friend. Chin, still puzzled, on March 20th, 2012, 7 days after Ying's body was discovered, the Jinai County Police issued an arrest warrant for Chin, accusing him of involvement in the crime as Ying's live-in boyfriend. Chin was considered the prime suspect during police interrogations, despite repeated requests to cooperate and confess. Chin steadfastly denied any involvement. On April 26, 2012, Chin was formally arrested and transferred to a detention center in Yan Province. Over the following 6 months, police interrogated Chin 14 times, documenting his statements, yet he continued to deny all charges. Nevertheless, his denials did not lead to his release. In November 2014, the Kunming Municipal People's Procuratorate officially charged Chin with intentional homicide. Investigators claimed to have gathered substantial evidence linking him to the crime. The first piece of evidence concerned the timeline of the murder. Forensic analysis determined that Ying had died roughly 5 days before the autopsy, placing her death between the night of March 8th and the early hours of March 9th. Additionally, food remnants in her stomach indicated she died about 6 hours after her last meal. According to Chin's testimony, he and Ying were together at their old apartment on Dongpangang Road, Kunming. During this time, however, the discovery of Ying's body, dressed in pink pajamas, suggesting she was at home or resting, contradicted his claim. This implied that Chin, who lived with Ying on the night of the incident, had both the opportunity and time to commit the crime, possibly while the child was asleep or absent. Further, suspicious behavior by Chin was uncovered. A security guard at the residential complex reported that Chin returned home around noon on March 9th, carrying several items from his car into the house. The guard left his post afterward, so it was unclear if Chin removed anything else. Police suspected this trip might have involved moving. Ying's body surveillance footage showed Chin driving out of Kunming via highway at 10:22 p.m. on March 9th. At 11:31 p.m., he was seen exiting the highway at Gua, about 6 miles from the Red Manor Villa complex. At 2:08 a.m. on March 10th, his car re-entered the highway from the entrance, and by around 3 o'clock a.m., Chin had returned to downtown Kunming. Police speculated that Chin used these late-night hours to transport and bury Ying's body. To test this theory, they conducted a simulation involving a drive from the highway exit to Chin's villa at Red Manor, digging a burial site, then returning to the highway. The entire process took 1 hour and 24 minutes, matching the timeline from surveillance footage. The investigation also uncovered 2 major doubts regarding Chin. The first concerned a text message, allegedly sent by Ying before her disappearance. According to Chin, he received a text from Ying's phone at 3:21 p.m. on March 9th. If Ying had indeed sent this message, it would suggest she was alive at that time, conflicting with the forensic conclusion that she died between the night of March 8th and early morning of March 9th. To resolve this discrepancy, police analyzed the text message word by word. They noticed unusual phrasing, particularly in the sentence, "Please pick up the child tonight." According to Chin, he and Ying lived together in a relationship similar to marriage, and he often helped pick up Ying's child. The overly polite tone in the message seemed inconsistent with their usual communication style. Additionally, police discovered the message was sent through a cell tower near the Maritime Bureau in District. Kunming. Chin's phone also received a message from this same tower. indicating both phones were within the same coverage area at the time. Telecommunications data confirmed that this tower exclusively served the Maritime Bureau building, where Chin worked reviewing surveillance footage from the Maritime Bureau building. Police found Chin arrived at his office at 7:45 a.m. on March 9th. He left briefly at 12:39 p.m., returning at 1:27 p.m. At 4:36 p.m., Chin left the building alone, however. During this entire period, there was no evidence Ying had been at the Maritime Bureau building, suggesting that the text message sent from Ying's phone may not have been genuine based on Chin's behavior at the Maritime Bureau. Police theorized that he had possession of Ying's phone and sent the text message himself to create false evidence suggesting she was alive and dining with friends. This was the first major suspicion clarified by the DMI police, however. Chin later presented an unexpected rebuttal, which will be discussed in detail further, on the second major suspicion involved Chin's motive for the crime according to Ying's mother. The relationship between Chin and Ying had started well, but later deteriorated due to irreconcilable conflicts. A key source of tension was Chin's teenage daughter, who was going through a rebellious phase and often clashed with Ying herself was described as having a volatile temperament, which further inflamed disputes caught between the two. Chin reportedly grew frustrated and resentful of Ying's behavior. Police also discovered that starting in 2011, a year before the incident, Chin had become involved with another woman, according to Ms. Shea, a professor at Yunnan University of Humanities. She met Chin through a dating website, and they began a relationship in early 2012, on February 28, 2012, just about 10 days before Ying's death. Chin took Ms. Shea to a hotel in Kunming for a date. Ms. Shea testified that their relationship continued secretly, even after Ying's death. Based on this information, the Yinbei police speculated that Chin's feelings for Ying had significantly cooled, and he might have wanted to end their relationship as soon as possible. Meanwhile, a friend of Ying stated that Ying was unwilling to let go of the relationship, as a full-time mother who was unemployed and needed security for herself and her son. Ying repeatedly asked Chin to marry her, but he refused with various excuses. March 2012. Ying had issued an ultimatum demanding Chin register their marriage. By March 12, she also demanded that Chin transfer ownership of a property in the district to her and provide a promissory note for 500,000 yuan as compensation. In the event of a breakup, Ying warned that if Chin refused, she would expose his financial dealings through their investigation. Police discovered that Chin, as a civil servant in the Maritime Bureau, managed funds amounting to 10 billion yuan annually. Ying's threats posed a significant risk to his career and personal reputation. Police believed this threat was a strong motive for murder to silence her, however. During the trial, Chin and his defense attorney presented unexpected arguments facing the prosecution's accusations. Chin remained calm. Media reports noted he even smiled, entering and exiting the courtroom, proactively greeting attendees before officially presenting his defense. Chin made a bold statement. "I am an intellectual who has never taken a life, not even of a chicken, let alone a human being. I hope the police will soon find the real culprit, and the court will clear my name." Chin's confidence incited outrage from Ying's family, with her brother angrily interrupting the proceedings after police intervention. Chin continued to assert that his relationship with Ying was harmonious. He described Ying as a family-oriented woman, 15 years younger than him, and said being with her was the greatest joy of his life. While acknowledging conflicts between Ying and his daughter, Chin argued that these disputes did not damage their relationship, let alone provide a reason for him to kill her. His relationship with Ms. Shea, Chin admitted to emotional infidelity, but denied any physical affair. He further claimed that he and Ying were preparing to marry and had already obtained documents verifying their marital status. As for Ying's alleged threats, Chin dismissed them as speculative claims by the police, arguing that authorities failed to provide sufficient evidence to substantiate the accusations. Chin's lawyer also criticized the police for relying on a presumption of guilt. They pointed out that police concluded Ying's death occurred on the night of March 8th or early hours of March 9th, but the defense argued this timeline was inaccurate and lacked rigor. The forensic report stated only that the time of death was approximately 5 days before the autopsy, without providing a specific time frame. Typically, 5 days prior could mean 4, 5, or even 6 days earlier if it was 4 days. The time of death could have occurred during daytime on March 9th, a period when Chin was reportedly at his office at the Maritime Bureau for most of the day, meaning he had no opportunity to commit the crime regarding the disputed text message. The defense argued that the police's conclusion that it was fabricated based on both phones connecting to the same cell tower was unfounded. According to information from the Yunnan Telecommunications Company, the cell tower at the Maritime Bureau did not exclusively cover the building, but also nearby streets and shops additionally. The tower's coverage overlapped with several other towers. Therefore, if Ying was in the vicinity of the Maritime Bureau, but not inside the building, Ying had been near the Maritime Bureau, but not inside the building. Her phone could still have connected to the same cell tower. Therefore, the fact that both phones connected to the same tower does not conclusively prove that both devices were under Chin's control. The defense lawyer concluded that if the message was truly sent by Ying on the afternoon of March 9th, then the police's assertion that she died on the night of March 8th, or in the early hours of March 9th, was unconvincing based on their analysis of the text message and its timing. It was highly likely that Ying's time of death occurred on the evening of March 9th. Next, Chin's lawyer addressed allegations concerning his client's movements after the incident, although testimony from the residential complex's security guard and highway surveillance footage made police view Chin's actions as highly suspicious. Chin explained that he briefly drove home around noon on March 9th. He stated he only brought in a box of tea and a box of liquor gifts from a friend, and denied the police's accusation that he transported Ying's body. Chin emphasized that his car was always visible and that the residential complex was busy at the time, with many passers-by, arguing that transporting a body under such circumstances would have been nearly impossible. The defense lawyer also noted that the police had no eyewitnesses or surveillance footage proving Chin transported a body, so his brief return home could not be considered critical evidence. Chin admitted that he left Kunming on the night of March 9th, but denied that it was connected to disposing of a body instead. He claimed he left to search for Ying. He said he brought a flashlight and went to the Red Manor area to check the villa and its surroundings during the search. He walked a long distance and rested in the villa for about 15 minutes, resulting in a total trip of approximately 1.5 hours at this point. The lawyer highlighted two major flaws in the police's allegations. A logical flaw: 1.5 hours would be insufficient time to carefully bury a body, and an evidentiary flaw: the police had searched Chin's car in the Red Manor villa, but found no traces linked to transporting or burying a body, such as blood, movement marks, or digging tools. The lawyer also questioned why the police focused solely on Chin and did not expand their investigation. This raised 3 additional questions. Crime scene: the forensic report indicated Ying's body had multiple injuries, suggesting she resisted before her death. However, on the night of March 8th, Chin's daughter was in the adjacent room, and neighbors reported no unusual noises. Murder weapon: forensics determined Ying was killed by blunt force trauma, but the police neither found the weapon nor identified its type or origin. Investigation scope: the lawyer questioned whether the investigation overlooked other potential suspects or evidence. Ying's text message mentioned meeting an old friend for dinner, but the police neglected to investigate this friend and instead focused solely on the assumption that Chin was the perpetrator. Despite these strong counterarguments, the Demai police remained convinced that Chin was the prime suspect. They presented another crucial piece of evidence: the duct tape used to bind Ying's body. Forensic technicians found 6 fingerprints and 3 palm prints on the tape, all matching Chin's, including 2 prints with traces of blood. This evidence directly contradicted Chin's statements and made it difficult for him to fully deny the prosecution's accusations. Specifically, a bloody fingerprint matching Chin's left thumb was found on the smooth surface of the tape wrapped around Ying's legs. A bloody palm print from Chin's left hand was identified on the adhesive side of the tape wrapped around her legs. Detailed analysis revealed that these prints were on multiple layers of the tape, indicating Chin had handled the roll repeatedly. While wrapping the body, the presence of blood on the fingerprints suggested that Chin's hands were already bloody when the prints were made, implying he was directly involved in injuring or handling Ying's body. This was highly compelling evidence. At this stage, the case appeared effectively solved. However, Chin countered by arguing that the fingerprints on the tape did not directly prove he was the perpetrator. He claimed the prints could have been left during prior use of the tape at the villa. According to Chin, a few days before the incident, he and Ying had visited the villa. During that visit, he had planned to take a blanket from the bedroom home for washing, but Ying suggested washing it at the villa instead. Chin speculated that the perpetrator might have used the same roll of duct tape he had previously handled to bind the body, which could explain why his fingerprints were found on it. However, the lawyer representing Ying's family dismissed this argument as highly unlikely and unreliable, emphasizing that the chance of the culprit coincidentally using a roll of tape previously touched by Chin was extremely slim. Additionally, police retrieved a roll of duct tape from Chin's villa that measured 173 inches in width, while the tape used to bind Ying's body was 5 inches wide, disproving the theory that the crime scene tape came from his residence. Chin's defense also raised the question of why, if he had handled the body without gloves, his fingerprints were found only on the tape and nowhere else on the victim's body. The defense suggested this could indicate deliberate planting of Chin's fingerprints on the tape to frame him. Police rejected this claim, accusing Chin of trying to mislead the investigation. Ying's family maintained that she had no known conflicts with anyone else, and that no other suspects had been identified based on the available evidence, particularly the bloody fingerprints. The Kunming Municipal People's Procuratorate formally charged Chin with murder in November 2014. However, on May 19, 2015, the Kunming Intermediate People's Court delivered its verdict, ruling that the prosecution's evidence was insufficiently compelling and failed to exclude other possibilities. Consequently, the charges could not be upheld. Court's detailed analysis identified four main issues with the prosecution's case. Unclear crime scene. The exact location of Ying's murder was never firmly established. While police speculated it occurred at Chin's home, there was no concrete evidence to support this, though. Chin's fingerprints were found on the tape used to bind the body. No direct proof showed the binding happened at his residence in certain time of death. The forensic report vaguely estimated Ying's death occurred roughly 5 days before the autopsy, but without a precise time frame, it was impossible to conclusively connect Chin's movements during that period to the crime. Lack of a clear murder weapon. Though blunt force trauma was determined to be the cause of death, the police failed to identify the weapon or establish any link between it and Chin. And clear motive. While the prosecution suggested financial and personal conflicts as motive, this was insufficient to prove Chin committed the murder. The court concluded that the prosecution had not presented direct evidence linking Chin to the crime. The existing evidence only proved that Chin had contact with Ying's blood and left fingerprints on the duct tape, which was not enough to definitively identify him as the murderer. Significant gaps in the prosecution's chain of evidence rendered the accusations unconvincing. Therefore, on May 19, 2015, applying the principle of innocent until proven guilty, the Kunming Intermediate People's Court acquitted Chin and immediately released him in court. Following his release, Chin expressed joy and gratitude, thanking the judicial system for upholding his legal rights and demonstrating fairness. However, the case remained unresolved, with many lingering questions. Where was Ying actually murdered? What was the exact time and method of the crime? Who tied and buried her body? Were there other potential suspects overlooked during the investigation? While Chin applied for reinstatement of his civil servant status, Ying's family was deeply dissatisfied with the court's decision. The Kunming Municipal People's Procuratorate also disagreed and filed an appeal on June 9, 2015. However, during the appeal process, the Yunnan Provincial People's Procuratorate concluded that the appeal lacked reasonable and sufficient grounds, and ultimately withdrew it. On November 2, 2015, the Yunnan Provincial Higher People's Court upheld the original verdict, declaring Qin not guilty, your viewers, even after the final verdicts. The truth remains cloaked in mystery. Ying's case has left a profound scar on her grieving family and society. Though the law declared Qin innocent, doubt and sorrow persist. This case did not end with a verdict, but instead raised endless questions about truth and the duty to seek justice. Perhaps the answers will remain forever, with the memory of a life tragically taken, yet the enduring pain and unanswered questions linger, a stark reminder of the fragility of justice when faced with uncertainty. The disappearance and brutal death of Hu Ying remain etched in the memories of those who loved her, a haunting puzzle that challenges investigators and the legal system alike. This unresolved case also sheds light on the complexities and limitations inherent in criminal investigations, where evidence may be ambiguous, motives unclear, and the truth elusive. It underscores the importance of thorough, unbiased inquiry and the profound impact these tragedies have on families left searching for closures. The years pass. Hu Ying's story continues to echo quietly through the streets of Kunming and beyond, a somber testament to a life cut short and the relentless human quest for truth and justice. The hope remains that one day, the veil of mystery will lift, revealing answers that bring peace to her family and honor to her memory. Thank you for joining us as we explore this deeply tragic and perplexing case. Stay tuned for more stories, where we seek to uncover the truths hidden beneath the shadows. Cases like Hu Ying's remind us that sometimes, despite the best efforts of law enforcement and the judicial system, the truth remains just out of reach. They highlight the necessity for constant advancements in forensic science, improved investigative techniques, and stronger protections to ensure justice is served, not just in court, but in the hearts of those affected. For Hu Ying's family, the pain of loss is compounded by the uncertainty surrounding her final moments. Their quest for answers has been long and difficult, marked by hope, frustration, and an unwavering desire for closure. Their story echoes the experiences of many families worldwide who endure the torment of unsolved crimes. As we reflect on this case, it's important to recognize the broader social issues it touches upon: conflicts, the vulnerabilities faced by women in unstable relationships, and the sometimes imperfect nature of legal proceedings. These factors remind us to remain vigilant and compassionate toward victims and their families. Though justice has not been definitively served, Hu Ying's memory endures as a call to action to improve how we protect the vulnerable, how we investigate the darkest crimes, and how we support those left behind. Thank you for following this difficult story. If you have any information or insights related to this case, authorities encourage you to come forward together. Perhaps we can bring light to the shadows and honor the life of Hu Ying. The unresolved nature of Hu Ying's case continues to spark debate among legal experts, investigators, and the public. It raises critical questions about how evidence is gathered, interpreted, and presented in court, and how the justice system balances reasonable doubt against the need for accountability. In the years since the verdict, the community around Kunming has become more aware of the challenges faced by victims of violent crimes, especially those complicated by personal relationships and ambiguous evidence. Local organizations have pushed for stronger victim support networks and reforms in investigative procedures to prevent similar tragedies from slipping through the cracks. Meanwhile, Hu Ying's family keeps her memory alive through quiet acts of remembrance, advocating for improved protections for women, and hoping that someday, the full truth of what happened will come to light. This case serves as a somber reminder: justice is not always clear-cut, And sometimes the pursuit itself is fraught with uncertainty and heartache, but every effort made to uncover the truth honors the victims and moves society one step closer to preventing future tragedies. The perpetrator of this crime will undoubtedly carry the heavy weight of their conscience as the rain gently falls and the night grows ever deeper. Thank you for joining me here at Crime Whispers, True Crime Stories. Remind us of life's mysteries and the importance of staying aware, even as we seek comfort in the quiet of the night. You've enjoyed tonight's tale. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let the rain carry you to a peaceful sleep. And until we meet again, stay safe, stay curious, and let the night watch over you.